convincing story that maps onto reality, and that's why the central narrative is falling apart.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
We must see the central narrative for the fiction that it is. We are Americans.
While elections are sometimes messy, this was a secure election.
The founders began the fight for human liberty and self-governance, and it's up to us to finish the job.
I tell you what, we are in a truth emergency right now.
This is the end game.
All the people that have gone out there against the mainstream media and said, you're going to call us racist, you're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs, fuck you. War.
Quite sure he's right. An obsessionally neurotic. Pretty dangerous, in fact.
Do you mean you doubt your powers to convince him?
Worse than that. What I'm afraid of is his power to convince me.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
Say it! Say it!
All right, I'll say it.
We're talking about putting a manifestly irresponsible man on national television.
Sweetheart, be reasonable.
It is Thursday, January 16th, 2025, the 1457th day of dystopia. I'm your moderator, Chris Paul. Let's be reasonable. So, yesterday we did the subscriber stream. So if you're out there and you're not a paid subscriber to the Substack, you would have missed that. We're going to pick up with some of the concepts there. So I'm going to try to recap as quickly as possible. On Monday, we talked about, Monday's episode was called Surprise Party. And I compared how things can be fake that you experience as real based on your perspective and the sort of situation we're talking about. And I use the example of a surprise party where the wife or the girlfriend throws the husband or the boyfriend, however you want to construct your situation here, a surprise party and invites a bunch of that person's friends. The friends are all going to come. And at some point before the surprise party happens, the person who's meant to be surprised finds out about the surprise party and therefore can no longer be surprised. Now, he may or may not divulge that to the person throwing the surprise party. Sometimes that person's going to get very mad. They've made this elaborate plan. They made sure to let everybody know not to divulge the plan. And then someone's gone and divulged the whole plan. And then the plan is broken for everyone. The mystique is gone. There's no way to still surprise. Frank was his name. So if they carry on with it, then multiple people are going along and playing some kind of trick, okay? First and foremost, the guy who's meant to be surprised but now can no longer be surprised, if he doesn't tell anybody whatsoever and he decides that he's going to act surprised anyway, then he's faking it and no one else knows about it. So it's not actually a surprise being exchanged there. So what we have is a fake surprise party, okay? Now, it's possible that he tells some of the people who are invited to the party, some of his friends, he's like, yeah, you know, Karen's throwing me a surprise party. I found out about it. I'll hang out with you guys. We'll all have a beer. I'm just going to go along with it. Please go along with it as well. Right? So now they're in on it. and everybody else is kind of getting faked out by what they're in on. And so you can go around and figure out different permutations of how this situation could play out and what it would mean, depending on the person's perspective, about whether or not it was a real event or a fake event. It's a pretty important thing to understand, particularly when we are analyzing surprise parties so often. And I think I'm just going to call false flags and mass trauma events surprise parties at this point, because there are people who are in on the trick. It's just not any of us. And I, communicated that yesterday by saying that from up high, from the top level, the fires in Los Angeles don't look like your neighbor's house burning down. From the top level, it looks like a construction project. And you could say the same thing about the war, the Israel-Gaza thing that is resolved or not. The neocons out there have decided that maybe there's still a chance that a deal wasn't actually done and that they can prevent a deal. They've also decided that maybe this is only a hostage deal and we still get to war as hard as we want with Hamas. There's no two-state solution anywhere in here. Hey, neocons, if Israel is negotiating with a terrorist organization, then that's pretty much a state, okay? It's not a hostage deal. Let's just give that a break. I mean, 6 months ago, Trump was like, yeah, there's no hostages. Said they're dead, said they're gone, said they're probably dead. Goes along with whatever. That's fine. Whatever their narrative is they want to tell. He's not looking to cause a controversy about the hostages. He's just looking to remove it as leverage, because it's not leverage. It's a TV show. And you should be able to tell that because it's all winding down right about now. Donald Trump set this up last week. Major thing down at Mar-a-Lago, said all hell's going to break loose unless this deal gets done by the 20th. Did he know that Biden and Bibi were already going to have a deal by the 20th and then they could extend it again? And then Trump just once again hijacked their narrative and took it off in his own direction, leaving the neocons defenseless, because what are they going to do? Come out against Trump and his deal? The American public doesn't want wars. There are some evangelicals out there who think we should annihilate the entire world in order to save that little regime proxy state on that little plot of land in Palestine forever. That is our destiny. Doesn't matter if they lie about the heritage of biblical Israel on down to the global proxy state that exists there now. Doesn't matter if that's a lie. We have to go to war on their behalf forever, on the behalf of a different religion, a different set of beliefs, and a different country, quote unquote, not our country, but, to most of the world, it's not a country at all. So that war is also going to leave at the end of it, I would bet a lot, the Ben Gurion Canal and new trade routes, and also a two-state solution down there. Palestine's already recognized as a state by much of the world. And now a negotiation has been done between Israel, which much of the world doesn't recognize as a state, and Palestine, Hamas, which it does. They're saying Hamas is at the very minimum a government like the Taliban. And of course, what have we seen with the Taliban? Well, they eliminated the opium trade out of Afghanistan. Who was keeping that going? The same neocons who want to keep this going in Israel. From the top level, it looks like a construction project. Okay. Yesterday, we talked about reality shows and how this period during the second half of, the aughts, as some would call them, 2000 to 2010, the second half of that decade, the proliferation of reality shows, particularly, the ones where a bunch of young people would be hanging out and doing extravagant things and looking rich while creating drama with one another, that has just kept going and going and going because gay men and women can't get enough of watching reality television. And so now we have still that phenomenon. But back then there was a period where they would consistently, the cast of these shows and some small production team would go to a Hollywood club and they would have a night of partying around a VIP table. And all of this would be filmed. And I was talking about how the scenes are structured and the characters know generally what their conversations are going to be about. And then they'll have those conversations and they'll be having some drinks, and maybe there are moments of real drama or real upset or hurt or whatever it is. And they'll get a scene and then they'll turn that scene in. It'll be edited for television. Then it'll go up to be approved, and then it'll go out on TV. And from the vantage point of a television producer, that's just a television show. But they're at a nightclub partying, and there are the rest of the people in the nightclub who are actually partying, while the people on camera in the reality show are just simulating partying. And then you can break that down further and break it further down on the outside too. But you can have something that is totally real and authentic in one place, and something that is absolutely fake and inauthentic right next to each other. Okay. And then you have people attempting to cross over. There are people from the general public, the party atmosphere, the real party atmosphere, let's call it, who want to go into the fake party atmosphere so that they can be on TV, because that's what makes them feel real important, having strangers out in the world know who they are and like them. Okay. And it's a weird thing. And, I'm on a public channel right now. So there's some of that element going on right here, right now. Okay. But so the idea is that falsehood can exist in situations that you experience as real, that many people experience as real, that virtually everybody experiences as real. Okay. There can still be falsity inside that. And the whole thing from the top level can also be a falsification. And in that case, you have to say, all right, well, this is being controlled from somewhere higher than me. And because I can look at its worldly sources, I can see that it's not God. So what matters in this situation? The personal experience matters, okay? I know your neighbor's house matters, right? But in terms of trying to analyze the situation, figure out what it ultimately means and what can be done to prevent your neighbor's house from getting burned down in a similar situation in the future, is look at the situation the way the people arranging the situation look at it. And to them, it's a construction project. So you analyze it as a construction project and then wonder, why are they okay with all of this collateral damage during this construction project? And who's letting them get away with this? Is the collateral damage of this construction project being communicated to me authentically, or is it being falsified because someone wants to shut down that construction project? Okay. So these are things that we have to look at when we're talking about major geopolitical concerns. Otherwise, we are leaving multiple levels of our thinking and discernment up to what is on television. We choose that at some point there's an upper limit. They would never lie past this point. Okay. And then everything beyond there, you're just like, well, they'd never lie beyond that point. So we can accept all of that stuff as true and then analyze it from there. Well, I don't accept any of that stuff as true because it's not true. You can see the way that they are handling it. There is an entire communications operation and strategy connected to the handling of the Los Angeles fires. In the same way there was a communication strategy mapped out and executed during COVID. Okay. If you don't believe me, you can go back. We haven't talked about this in a while, but you can go back and look for the document entitled, in fact, let me see. I think I can just pull it up here quickly. This was a file I used to often refer to. There was a document out of the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security in 2017, I believe it was released, and it was called SPARS Pandemic 2020. Hold on, let me just pull it up. Here it is. SPARS Pandemic 2025 through 2028, a futuristic scenario for public health risk communicators. Okay. Here you have all of the names of the team members: Johns Hopkins, Bloomberg School of Public Health, Center for Health Security. All right. We just talked about the Caruso centers at USC and at Pepperdine. This is what oligarchs do. They put their name on academic centers, and those academic centers do studies to support the agenda of the person donating all the money. So look at this. Chapter 1, the SPARS outbreak begins. A possible cure, a potential vaccine. Users beware. Going viral. The grass is always greener. The voice, are you talking to me? Changing horses midstream. Oh, you can't do that. Head of the line privileges, standing in line, protesting online. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Oh, I'm sorry, that vaccine didn't work. You know what I mean? They go through. These are all the ways you're going to talk about everything throughout the time. Look, right here, the social media, right there on the preface. The following comprises a futuristic scenario that illustrates communication dilemmas concerning medical countermeasures that could plausibly emerge in the not so distant future. Its purpose is to prompt users, both individually and in discussion with others, to imagine the dynamic and oftentimes conflicted circumstances in which communication around emergency MCM development, distribution, and uptake takes place. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so they go through an entire communication strategy on the scenario that they were intending to inflict on the American public, and then they inflicted it. And a lot of people were like, oh, well, I guess a virus appeared on a bat in a cave in China, 1,400 miles away from this place called Wuhan. And now I stick Q-tips in my nose to find out if I'm dead. Okay, you know? Or you can say, hey, something seems a little off about this whole pandemic thing. It's like they are just planning out what they're going to tell us, and it has no bearing on reality whatsoever. Oh, they're going to tell us we all need to save one another or else we're killing grandma. Hey, why are we locking down our economy the fastest possible way to destroying the lives of the most possible lower class, lower middle class, and middle class Americans, and even upper middle class Americans? That's what happened. Why did we do that if we were trying to save lives? That is the surest sign you're going to lose lives. And of course, hundreds of millions of people around the world went into extreme poverty, and the United States was decimated. And by the way, that right there was the economic collapse and the Great Reset. There might be another one. But I think that was probably the big one. And it wasn't described to us that way, of course, because we had this cover story. And Trump, used that and was able to reroute this global narrative. But it was planned from the top. And if we stopped messing around in the weeds about sob stories about how people are being treated, and again, I know people were treated terribly, but you know what we did while following all those sob stories? We didn't focus on the people who were treating everyone terribly. Instead, we were just emoting because of the situation we found ourselves in. All right. So it's important to look at that top level, because their perspective is the one perspective that actually tells the truth of the situation. The LA fires are a construction project. It might be other things too, but at the bottom of it is a construction project as viewed by the global regime. That is, they're making their moves for the smart city, for the 2028 Olympics, and for the entrance into that 2030 agenda. That's what they are doing at their global cities around the world. And Los Angeles, of course, is one of those. And, I spent 18 and a half years there watching it degrade in exactly this fashion. It's the most corrupt place on earth. It has totally fake elections. It is through and through a communist state. And if we weren't so deceived throughout our lives about what communist states were, and the fact that our media and historical authorities were the ones who determined that on our behalf as the experts, that we could not determine these things for ourselves, we would have recognized these things much, much sooner and much earlier. They are like that. They are not another way. They are like that. Donald Trump today put out a really interesting post on Truth Social. Speaking of showbiz, there is in fact no business like show business. And I was I was talking to my friend's Ghost of Base Patrick Henry today on kind of our differing opinions about the status of Benjamin Netanyahu. He believes that once a villain, always a villain, and he may well be right. I also believe that there is some chance, at least, that that's our boy Yuhu he's talking about. And it seems to me that Benjamin Netanyahu's primary role of the last few years has been to out the neoconservative, militant, worldwide Zionist project that has been ongoing for the last, I don't know, I'd say like 129 years. I remember a few weeks ago when Trump kept saying that that was the most important election in the last 129 years. I wonder what he meant by that. But anyway, I think that might be our boy Yuhu. Regardless, what I said to him was the story that we have been told throughout our lives is a story told only by liars. Only by liars. Okay? We will have an occasional truth teller every now and then in public life. Very often not. Donald Trump has a way of being a catalyst for truth. He doesn't even need to tell the truth at any given moment because he is such a lightning rod for constant criticism that whatever he says, both of those sides who lie about everything will find something to get mad at him for and then expose their actual positions and motivations. So he is a catalyst for truth. I don't even need Trump to tell the truth. It's just what he is. But besides public figures like that, you know, we'll definitely have truth tellers in our own lives who are prepared to tell us the truth always and the hard truth always, or, you know, to the extent that humans are able to consistently do that. I try to tell the truth all the time, but I am a weak and sinful person. I am fallible. I don't imagine that I have stopped lying and told my last lie, and I will probably lie at some point in the future to protect myself or my interests, or because I'm scared of what a person might think of me. Who knows how many reasons a person might lie, which is why I never ask for anybody's trust. I don't want you to trust me. I want you to think for yourself and come to whatever conclusions you want. I don't want you to side with me. I don't care if you side with me. Okay? I'm saying what I think, and I'm trying to walk through a thought process that is a reversal of the indoctrination that we've been force-fed our entire lives. So you can't even perfectly tell the truth with yourself is what I'm saying, okay? So we have ourselves fallible. People around us, maybe damn good truth tellers, also fallible. Very few public figures even attempt to be truth tellers. And then, of course, all of them are fallible. But by and large, we have had this indoctrinating and indoctrinated story forced upon us by only liars. All right. So that has to be kept in mind all the time. And I try to do that even with characters who are, you know, more distasteful, you might say, like our boy Yuhu. You know, we went through this process over the last few years on some characters that were presented for our entire lifetimes as complete and total villains. Vladimir Putin, Little Rocket Man, you know, MBS seems to be solid, and he's a Saudi royal, you know, and this is the process of applying good twin, evil twin really consistently and erasing and letting go of that prior knowledge, allowing what is being presented to weigh in our thinking with an open mind and see what happens. I mean, we're seeing what, I should say, makes these neocon warmongers screech and recoil. All right. Now, it may be that some of them are involved in an info op and they are just being Judas goats walking people into their public doom through the expression of their opinions about these subjects, but it looks like they are expressing opinions consistent with what they've expressed over the past few years. And I would encourage everybody, by the way, to take a look through the key members of the Ron DeSantis simp op. They seem to be pretty well on the same page that this is a deal that shouldn't be happening and that shouldn't be supported because they need more war with Hamas. They told people they were going to glass the desert. Now, is that to draw all the demons out? I'm not the person to judge that, okay? I have watched these people say heinously anti-Trump and anti-MAGA things for the last 3 years, while watching them also say great things about Ron DeSantis and Israel. That is something I know to be true. So we're going to get back into some of that in just a minute. But as far as the show aspects of some of this goes, we talked yesterday about how a lot of these storylines that have developed over the last 4 years that are based on levels, magnitudes, some of them just completely preposterous, but just levels and levels of fakery, stories that I believe have been obviously fake from the beginning. And I said so at the time. And I believe that some of that is being wrapped up now. And so we went through example after example after example of that yesterday. I think I actually wrote down a list of these earlier. And I want to add on to one of them at the end. I have to do that. Jack Smith having no standing. He never had standing. The Jack Smith cases were fake. The Israeli hostages. If there were any hostages from the beginning, from the paragliding go-kart incident with the babies baked in ovens and with the decapitated babies and all of that, if there were ever any hostages, Trump said that they were gone, that they were dead a year ago. And now we have a hostage deal that's being wrapped up. Okay. The hostages are no longer a thing. You don't have that anymore. Trump's taking credit for it. Biden's taking credit for it. So that means that Americans on both sides of the Uniparty, people who have been totally clueless to all of this, and they're taking their political sides, but they don't really care. They just want the problems to stop and to go away. They're like, oh, cool, war's over. Now we don't have to be angry and lie about these things anymore. Maybe now we don't have to hear about Israel every week in our supposedly Christian church. The SEC suing Elon because he doesn't have his proper sales filings done for Twitter that he never actually bought because it's DARPA technology, and you don't buy for $44 billion the most powerful information weapon in the history of the world from billionaires who use it to control the world and control markets and overthrow countries. Okay. These are storylines being closed because they were fake the whole time. And before I get to what I was just about to get to, let's just quickly do this from yesterday. Now, we all are aware that the television told us a few weeks ago that Hunter Biden was receiving a pardon from the fake president and that all of these other people were going to receive pardons as well. The only problem being, of course, that Joe Biden is in fact a fake president and he cannot give pardons. He cannot do anything because nothing he does has any official meaning in the history of the United States of America. And again, the people are the final authority. The people delegate their authority to the states, their representatives at the state level, and then from there to the federal level. And the people are the ultimate authority and can rescind their delegation of that authority at any time. So the people, that means, are then the final verdict on all of this. All right. Joe Biden can't just give out official pardons when he's not really president. And it doesn't matter what the courts say. It doesn't matter what the legislature says. When the people come to understand that Joe Biden was never elected, he was never certified, he was never inaugurated, and his presidency is null and void, that's that. There's not another thing. They can't appeal that. The people are the final authority. All right. So none of those pardons matter in any way. In any way. Here is Paul Sperry yesterday Paul Sperry reported extensively for Real Clear Politics, which, by the way, is a Charles Koch institution, and we'll have to go through that Donald Trump Truth Social post in just a moment as well. But Paul Sperry, right here, he says, developing Hunter Biden is missing from the Justice Department's pardon database in spite of the, quote, full and unconditional pardon, end quote, his father, the POTUS, granted him last month. His clemency does not appear in the case files and can only be accessed through the FOIA library. Developing. Oh, you don't say, you don't say. How could it be? Say it ain't so, Paul. So I forgot to do this yesterday, and that's upsetting to me because I wanted to make my point thoroughly and completely. And when I don't do that, I immediately begin kicking myself until I am able to straighten that out. USA Today, this is from December 3rd and then updated December 4th of last year. President Biden, already got it wrong, bypassed Justice Department in pardoning son Hunter. Court records, okay? And so we already kind of went through some of this back then, and maybe we didn't give it enough attention. A federal judge in Delaware formally ended the gun case against Hunter Biden on Tuesday after President Biden gave his son an unusually broad pardon without going through customary processing by Justice Department's Pardon Office. Justin Mary Ellen Noreika terminated the indictment on 3 gun charges related to Hunter Biden's purchase of a revolver while he was addicted to illegal drugs. It's almost like the case never happened. The fake case, the Jack Smith case against Donald Trump, never happened. Okay? Wasn't a real case. They're telling you right here, this is also not a real case. A fake pardon was issued by a fake president, and the fake court case then immediately went away. And the person, this judge, Mary Ellen Noreika, might not have any clue that the rest of it is fake, although she should if she was actually doing her duty to the people and the Constitution. It would actually be on her to recognize that fact. But hey, who cares at this point? It's all so corrupt, right? These are the examples of how people can simply just go along with it. She thinks it's real. Oh, I'm doing my job. He was pardoned. Did she check if the pardon was properly done? Or was it fake? Okay. And it's okay if it's fake. But let's just then call it fake and say it's fake. All right. Let's not pretend that somehow if it is fake, you can't call it fake. Well, you can't call it fake. I understand how each and every single element the entire time rested on no foundation whatsoever. And that was visible to everybody. And we could have admitted it the entire time. And we could have admitted it enough the entire time that then everyone would have understood it was fake. And the plot line could have simply been closed because no one ever would have the capacity to care as the final authority to render judgment. We could have done that the entire time, but we didn't. And now a lot of people will say, well, no, none of this means it was fake. No, all of it means it was fake because the people are the final authority to render judgment on matters exactly like this. And not a single law, not a single anything was followed here. And he was tried for gun and tax charges. Okay. Shall not be infringed. No right to be taxed. That's the end of the story. A jury convicted Biden in June and he awaited sentencing December 12th, but President Biden gave his son a full and conditional pardon on Sunday for any federal crimes he may have committed from 2014 through the end of the year, which legal experts called a very unusual clemency. Biden signed the pardon after huddling with his family in Nantucket, Massachusetts for the Thanksgiving holiday. The pardon was, quote, not processed via application, end quote, through the Justice Department's Pardon Office as is customary, according to an email from the senior deputy pardon attorney who isn't named in the court records. So, 2 things. 1, Biden, fake president. 2, the Justice Department doesn't actually have any constitutional authority in the matter in the first place. Okay? Maybe statutory authority somewhere down the line, but the president can pardon on his own with a stroke of his pen. All right. So this is revealing actually the process that it has been the whole time. Regardless, Biden ain't president. Okay, so just another line, another storyline closed. And quickly, while we're on the subject, let's go ahead and do the Charles Koch Con Inc. post. This is Donald Trump going hard after what we consistently refer to as Conservative Incorporated. Okay? As of today, the incoming Trump administration has hired over 1,000 people for the United States government. They are outstanding in every way, and you will see the fruits of their labor over the coming years. We will make America great again, and it will happen very quickly. In order to save time, money, and effort, it would be helpful if you would not send or recommend to us people who worked with or are endorsed by Americans for No Prosperity, headed by Charles Koch, Dumb as a Rock, John Bolton, Bird Brain, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, Disloyal Warmongers, Dick Cheney and his psycho daughter Liz, Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan, General, ? Mark Milley, James Mattis, Mark Jesper, or any of the other people suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, more commonly known as TDS. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, all of this might be kayfabe, and all of those people might be well under control, but the message is pretty unmistakable. That is a direct shot at Conservative Incorporated. They are going to have no say. These are the neocons. No say whatsoever in the Trump administration or government. In fact, they are being removed from the party. That's it. All right. There's no room for neocons because neocons are leftists. Neocons are globalists. Neocons are warmongers, and they all present themselves in the disguise of American conservatism and what they call, quote unquote, Judeo-Christianity. They are religious to the extent that the religion helps them gain power in their quest to take over the world. That is quite a statement. And as I said, again, we have Con Inc. out there today talking about how the deal that has been settled to end the scene or series, or what would you like to call it? A long-running, 15-month running television series about the paragliding go-kart incident. They want that to keep going, and it's not going to keep going. And the problem with it no longer going, if both quote-unquote Democrats and Republicans agree that it's good that the Israel-Palestine thing end in a negotiation between Israel and the terrorists, then there's no issue anymore. And that's the real problem, because that's essentially what happened for the Uniparty when it comes to abortion. They had their controlled opposition dynamic. They protected it for 50 years or longer, and now they don't have it anymore. Okay? They don't have that issue to fight about at the national level, and they don't have any way to maintain their abortion industry as they did before. Abortion is an input into another industry. Okay? It's an input into the human tissue industry. And pharmaceuticals and the science. Imagine giving abortion as a gift to Nazi scientists. That's what we're doing. Okay? And it's being sold as an element of women's liberation from the chains of bondage of the patriarchy. Man, I must have missed the patriarchy the last 10 years while everything in the world was being blamed on conservative white Christian men. Oh, it's good times. It's good times. Okay, so No business like show business. The show of it all, okay? In this story told only by liars, we are now able to witness the show in full as a show. And Donald Trump posted this today on Truth Social, which I find rather amazing. And as you consider this post, think about the rather than focusing on who runs Hollywood, think about the political agendas driving Hollywood politics. Okay. We don't even need to think about the people actually running the studios and the agencies, the people actually acting in the movies and television shows in large part. Okay. We don't have to think about the who in terms of ethnicity or anything like that. We can simply think of the political agendas driving them and leave it at that. Okay. And go no further. And let's hear what Donald Trump has to say. It is my honor to announce John Voight, Mel Gibson, and Sylvester Stallone to be special ambassadors to a great but very troubled place, Hollywood, California. Sign me up. They will serve, that's me saying that, by the way, for audio listeners, not Donald Trump. They will serve as special envoys to me for the purpose of bringing Hollywood, which has lost much business over the last 4 years to foreign countries, back. Wow, it's almost like he's talking about Hollywood as a foreign country. And of course, what do they mean by global city? DC is a global city. The Vatican is a global city. The city of London is a global city. How many more of those do they want? And again, Curtis Yarvin and the tech bros, the Peter Thiels and Mark Andreessens of the world, they want global cities, tech cities, and they want them to be kind of internally run. They don't have to necessarily be these cities, but maybe they want to build new cities. Maybe that's why Donald Trump talked about freedom cities. I'm open to exploring the possibilities at least, but let's be clear about what's happening now. They are trying to turn these into global cities because they want global citizens to be able to carry on their business globally, traveling back and forth between these hubs of business and activity in the major urban centers, and then the best vacation spots on earth. And their planes will just be jumping from one to the next, while a slave class inhabits that city to provide the labor and some of the lifestyle of that city. And then all of industry will be done around and outside of that. Next week, by the way, on Badlands Story Hour, we're going to be talking about exactly this idea through the lens of the movie Elysium. It is a science fiction movie by the writer and director Neil Blomkamp, who wrote and directed District 9, and very much about this same issue. In a sense, the wealthy live off planet in this techno-utopia. Okay? So he's treating Hollywood as though it is a foreign country, and to the extent that DC and others are, and to the extent that we can visibly understand the political agenda that is being pushed there, which indicates who's in control there, then we can know what that agenda is and who is controlling it. Okay. And the fact that the controllers represent a foreign occupying regime, in fact, the very same one occupying Washington, D.C. And of course, California is, as I said, a fully captured communist state. Okay. So in very real ways, it is a foreign territory, and they are being his envoys to a foreign territory, or at least he has announced that in regard to the fantasy team. I wonder why not James Woods. Okay, so he wants to bring Hollywood, which has lost much business over the last 4 years to foreign countries, back bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. These three very talented people will be my eyes and ears, and I will get done what they suggest. It will again be like the United States of America itself, the golden age of Hollywood. Okay, now, what are these people's backgrounds? Interesting question. They are certainly American icons. John Voight and Mel Gibson have been recently very supportive. And I guess Stallone is online, but with, I guess, less of a presence, less of an obvious pro-Trump presence, or maybe I've missed it. No offense in any way to Sylvester Stallone. He's got a great movie coming out at some point this year, I hope, that I'm very excited to see, and that I think is just an all-American film that people will absolutely love. So I like all of this good stuff, but a very interesting way of describing these things. Clear that Donald Trump believes there is some considerable importance in what Hollywood has to offer, or at least a public communication needs to be done to get this back in order. Okay. Now, it's critical to understand that this is going to be a public negotiation. I've said for years now that Donald Trump is 100% of the time mid-negotiation in public. He is negotiating directly against the top levels of the global regime and getting the backing and showing off that backing of the American people to the global regime as leverage. All right. For all of time, certainly as far back as we know. And you know what? We can even leave that. We could go back 100 plus years. And for that entire period, you could even go back 129 years. But for that entire period, particularly throughout World War II, through these color revolutions that we can see, Vietnam, everything can be viewed through this lens because it is the same. It is the regime playbook, the one pattern. There's one pattern. They attempt to manipulate narratives through the media, through people's personal reputations. They destroy the projects. They kill them in the crib if they're able to do it with media. Then they use corruption and compromise. If they have something on you, if they have something on a business, they will use that corruption and compromising material, the corruption if they can buy you off, or the compromising material if they can't, and they will force compliance that way. If that fails, they go to financial manipulation on the individual level, destroy your credit rating, cost you your job, which is part of the reputation thing, make all your friends and family abandon you. These are the sorts of things that they do. They can debank you. They can censor you. They can do all of these things. All right. And on the country level, of course, then we're talking about sanctions and we're talking about currency manipulation. And they do those things. And when all of that fails, then it's to the military aspect if they have it. Control of resources, control of trade routes are all a part of that as well. All right. Those are the tools. And these are the tools for negotiation. And the leverage in the negotiation exists to the extent that those public communications methods are effective and that those economic methods are effective. And then obviously militaries can be very effective. They aren't able to use the military. They no longer seem to be able to use the economics. All they have left is the reputational damage they're able to do through the media and whatever corruption and compromise they're able to still wield. And that is it. So Donald Trump negotiates with them in public, relying on his own communication style and the good attention, good wits, good smarts, good morals, and goodwill of the American people to help him in public discern what the truth is so that everyone can participate in understanding that truth and then reject the narrative from the global regime. Mid-negotiation all the time. So they are going to go out and carry on a public negotiation with the people who lead Hollywood. And that will basically be a public negotiation on the dismantling of their monopolistic power on that industry and the things they've used that industry to do. All right. Now, a lot of people would say that I'm being overly optimistic about what Trump is doing and what his plans are. And that's fine. I am certainly being optimistic about it. And you can say that I'm biased toward a pro-Trump interpretation, and you would be right about that. And I have, I think, substantiated that position extraordinarily well over the last few years, while the people who constantly bias and analyze everything toward it from an anti-Trump position have smashed their faces into brick walls so many times that they are now just parts of the brick wall. So I'm going to go with my interpretation. And we see more of these negotiations happening right now in all of these hearings in front of the fake and illegitimate Senate. That is what we are watching on a day-to-day basis. We are watching a public negotiation blow up in the regime's face. And the funny thing about the fantasy team is Donald Trump selected so many people from the fantasy team or onto the fantasy team from globalism, from Conservative Incorporated, the Republican establishment, from Fox News and other media adversaries, that now they are arguing the public negotiation is between two bad positions that they don't want, and everybody's watching them. And I am going to show you that example, or many examples of that, in just a moment. But let's close this out. He says, these three very talented people will be my eyes and ears, and I will get done what they suggest. It will again be like the United States of America itself, the golden age of Hollywood. Okay. And again, this is an aspect of the American Renaissance. Okay. Once the regime and the agenda break down, and that malign influence, controlling speech, controlling ideas, controlling what gets made and what doesn't, eliminating the free market and replacing it with top-down control for the express purpose of creating propaganda. That being gone, that alone being gone, and removing the political agenda from Hollywood decisions, the globalist political agenda from Hollywood decisions, means that we are on the dawn of a new age of film in Hollywood. That's what it is. And that's true of course, every industry. Damn. All right. 55 minutes. Okay, we're doing good. Doing good. All right, where are we at? Checking in on the chat. Everybody seems to be okay. Swim John says it's being reported that Dave Sachs will have a role in the Trump administration. If true, very good news. Alexander Mercouris of the Duran stated that today. Well, David Sachs is a host of the All In podcast. He is one of Elon Musk's normie podcast tech bros, and he's going to be like a crypto advisor for Trump. That was announced many weeks ago. I don't believe that that is a good thing. I also don't believe it's a thing that will last. I believe that is just concessions made to the Peter Thiel technocracy side of things, the Mark Andreessen technocracy side of things, the Mark Zuckerberg technocracy side of things. Okay. That to me doesn't matter at all. I don't find David Sachs to be particularly interesting or smart or on the right side. He hosted Ron DeSantis's political campaign launch gleefully. And it's just a normie podcast that happens to be big because tech bros retweet it. It is, not a fan. Not a fan. I hope that all these people get exposed in the process of this fantasy team, or it will happen soon following that. And by the way, while we are on that page, let's go ahead and have a look at this just today. When last we saw Vivek Ramaswamy, he was telling us that we weren't good enough to have jobs. No, he was saying that we need to import foreign labor because Americans are too dumb and lazy and addicted to the television to be able to fill these very important roles that can only be filled by Indians. Trump encourages Vivek Ramaswamy to seek Ohio's open Senate seat. Oh, wow. And so, of course, when you see a headline like this, everybody takes it to mean Trump is actually promoting Vivek Ramaswamy. But let's see what this means, or what this says. Sorry. President-elect Donald Trump has encouraged billionaire biotech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy to consider filling Ohio's vacant Senate seat should the post be offered to him, according to two people with knowledge of the matter who spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe the private deliberations. Ramaswamy publicly withdrew his name from consideration for the post in November after Trump chose him to lead the Department of Government Efficiency panel along with billionaire executive Elon Musk. But the Ohio native has reemerged in recent days as one of the leading contenders for the Senate seat and is in advanced discussions with GOP leaders about the position the people said. So Vivek Ramaswamy, again, is a representative of that Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen contingent and big information operation. And they have been running a big information operation for years now through the fake primary, through all their podcast appearances with all of the normies and all the based and red-pilled guys and all the very edgy centrists and all of it. Okay, it's all the same info op. Vivek has been right there at the front of it saying very based and red-pilled things, just not really all the true things. He says the things that have been accepted by the central narrative right as they're being accepted by the central narrative. So Elon Musk made a big deal about Doge, and then Vivek jumped on board with Doge. Then Vivek shat the bed, and now he's trying to get the Senate seat again. And the leverage for that is being pushed by, what did they say? Two people with knowledge of the matter. Two people with knowledge of the matter say Vivek is going to be the senator again because maybe the Doge thing's not working out so well. Maybe like somebody realized it's not real or something, and that project's already getting done in different ways, and that this is only a cover story. Hey, I don't know. I'm sure all the people who fanboyed for 6 weeks over Doge would be very disappointed to hear that, but sorry. I mean, what do we need Doge for? Why are we applauding bureaucrats? Okay? Why are we applauding bureaucrats? That is so degrading. Please, these replacements will save us from our own government better than the other ones will. If you need saving from your government, just take your power back and disband it. Okay? I no longer recognize our government. That's it, right? Nothing violent. Nothing violence necessary. These people don't have anything. They're faking it. J.D. Vance, who previously held the seat, officially resigned Friday to serve as Trump's vice president. How about that? J.D. Vance is no longer a senator. Donald Trump is not the president yet, right? That's what we're being told, isn't it? He's not the president yet. When did Kamala Harris resign her Senate seat? Let's see if the machine knows. When did Kamala resign her Senate seat? I remember there being a delay in that till either the end or right after. She did it on the 18th at noon. Okay? They waited right down till the wire because people were worried that Trump might try something. Apparently, the worry that Trump might try something is gone, despite how often it keeps being brought up by the tech types and the podcast bro types who just talk about assassination attempts constantly. So J.D. Vance resigned on Friday. That would have been, what is tomorrow? Tomorrow is the 17th. That would have been the 10th. Okay. So 8 days earlier than Kamala did in 2020. Under Ohio law, Mike DeWine, the governor, will appoint a replacement for the next 2 years. Then a special election on November 3rd, 2026 will decide who serves until the term expires in 2029. While the decision rests with DeWine, Trump has personally appealed to Ramaswamy to accept the appointment if offered, the people said. Okay? So, Does this article say that Trump personally appealed to Ramaswamy to accept the appointment? Or does the article say that according to two random people we will not name, Trump suggested Ramaswamy accept the appointment? Well, it's the second one. Okay. So that's not anything. If Donald Trump wanted to say something about this, he would do this. Now, could this be leaked from Trump's side? Maybe, because maybe he wants to watch the reaction, and that's a wise thing to do. But Vivek, whatever. The last minute message was conveyed within the past week. Last minute message was conveyed within the past week. What's last minute about it? They're trying to head off Governor Mike DeWine's decision. Did he have another decision in mind? And now they're trying to get in front of it? What is making them get in front of it now after Ramaswamy had pulled back? Now, is Ramaswamy being directed to do all of this to see what the DeWine choice would have been and the neocon choice would have, what choice that would have been? Maybe. So we can leave ourselves open to all those possibilities. Now, Vivek doesn't appeal to me as a good guy because I judge things on my standards, but maybe you like him and maybe you give him more of the benefit of the doubt than I do. I go zero trust. Okay. You might not feel that way. And you might think that I'm attacking Vivek. I don't really care about Vivek. I care about understanding the situation and watching the back and forth, because I don't believe that everything Trump is just in the clear, free and clear now. And also we have the lasting project of preserving this thing. Okay. Which means we have to understand the thing. And if the American people are going to accept back the power that is being given back to them, well, then they have to be prepared to accept that power by understanding what's going on and how to make these judgments rather than just figuring out who on television to root for, because that's not enough. And it's weird that people from the truther movement or the Q movement or whatever movement are just encouraging cheerleading all week. Cheerleading. Why? Why are we cheerleading? Donald Trump's awesome. MAGA's awesome. Clearly, a massive majority. But the problems aren't solved. We need to cheerlead for television characters along with establishment Republicans to support Trump. I think we need to understand what's going on in the country rather than supporting the television. Ramaswamy has long planned to run for governor of Ohio in 2026 after completing his work with DOGE, which is supposed to wrap up operations by July 4th, 2026. So now he wants the Senate job back so that he can have 2 years as a senator to use as a springboard for Ohio governor. And then because he's only in there for 2 years, he gets to pass it off to someone else once he becomes governor. I would imagine that's how they've got it arranged to work. That is essentially what they did in Nebraska. We saw the thing with, who is it? Pete Ricketts. And let me see this. I'm going to ask the machine really quickly. Maybe it can give me a good summary. Did Pete Ricketts choose his own? Pete Ricketts chose his own replacement twice in the context of U.S. Senate appointments. After former Senator Ben Sasse resigned to a position at the University of Florida, Nebraska's new Republican governor, Jim Pillen, appointed Ricketts, who had previously served as Nebraska's governor, to fill the vacant Senate seat. This appointment was significant as it allowed Ricketts to return to a position he had previously held. Additionally, Ricketts is currently running in a special election to complete the remainder of Sasse's term, which ends in January 2027. That wasn't the full answer I was looking for, but there's something similar with that situation over there. We won't belabor it. It's unclear how the appointment would affect Ramaswamy's leadership of DOGE, which is not an official government body. No, it's not an official government body. It's not a real government body either. Okay. It's a position on the fantasy team. It would be like doing a fantasy football draft under the understanding that you were going to draft individual defensive players as well and track defensive stats. And then after the draft, right before the season starts, reconsider the decision and be like, no, we're just going to draft a defense like normal and leave it there. Well, what happens to all of the people who were drafted into positions that don't exist and never did exist? Well, then they would just blip, gone. Okay. Just like the Hunter Biden story, just like the Jack Smith story, just like Elon Musk buying Twitter. The story starts and it stops. It goes nowhere and then it's gone. Did it ever happen? No, of course it didn't happen. It was a narrative event to explain why that person isn't there anymore. Donald Trump drafted off all of Fox News' team. If there was a next wave for Con Inc. and the Republican establishment, it has been systematically spotlighted and systematically dismantled. And I've been saying this for now nearly 3 years, maybe more than 3 years. I think we started talking 2022 about how it was rhino hunting season throughout the entire year. And here we are getting the last rhinos, the superstars at the very top. And I think that's what this is because, of course, they represent various parts of the global regime, particularly Zionist factions in that global regime. And I had to really upset Perplexity today because for the longest time, it kept going over and over again, trying to tell me that I hadn't just fed it a PDF that I did in fact feed it. So I wanted to figure out, and I'm just going to touch on this briefly because we're on the subject. I wanted to figure out in Edwin Black's book, The Transfer Agreement, which chapters specifically talk about the Zionist global governing bodies warring with one another over who would get to partner with the Nazis in this business deal to ship European Jews down to Palestine to set up the proxy state. Okay. Which ones of them would work with the global bankers to be able to push this money into the Nazi regime, have them confiscate all the Jewish property, and then transfer it and the people down to Palestine to set up Israel. All right. And then, of course, those same Nazis became the Muslim Brotherhood and various Israeli paramilitary factions and stuff. That is what's being exposed through the paragliding go-kart op of these last 15 months. And now we are seeing the screeching and writhing of that demon as it is burning on the desert floor. Okay. So we have these various governing bodies. I feed in the PDF, the full PDF. Okay. It apologizes. It says it's only the introductory material. You didn't give me the whole book. I said, I just gave you a copy in PDF form. It says, I apologize. I see that, but it's only the introductory material without full access. If you have full access, I say this is full access. Then it's confused. We went through this cycle 3 or 4 times. Okay. I apologize, but I respectfully point out that the search results do not contain the full text, only the introductory material. You can see how long this keeps going. All right. I keep asking it. Why? Why can't you answer my questions about the full text? I rearrange the question so that it says every element so that it can give it to me all perfectly. Again and again and again. No answers, no answers. And then finally, I don't know how it worked, but I said which Jewish global governing bodies are featured in the book. And it said the Zionist organization. They represented various factions within the Jewish community and played a crucial role in discussions with Nazi officials. The Jewish Agency for Palestine. This organization acted as a representative body for the Jewish community in Palestine and was heavily involved in negotiations surrounding the transfer agreement. The American Jewish Committee, same thing. How to respond to Nazi Germany. The World Zionist Organization, okay? And Agudath Israel. And among these is also B'nai B'rith and some others. And so I said, so then there are global governing bodies influencing geopolitics through the use of media and finance. And it reiterates that, yes, these are discussed throughout the book. So the negotiation is absolutely going on, and it's going on in front of all of us at all times. And the negotiation is who will be put in leadership of what positions what their agendas will be, how they will interact with the global regime. They want their elections left in place. They want their taxes left in place. I was watching the Senate hearings for Scott Bessent, who is the Treasury Secretary nominee on the fantasy team. Scott Bessent, as we presented last week, is a board member on the International Crisis Group, or was when they put out that report in 2019 on Venezuela. Hold for 1 second. So he worked for Soros Fund Management for his career. Scott Bessent. I'm going to just pull up his wiki so you can see it here. This man worked next to George Soros. Is that a good thing because he knows the ins and outs? Maybe. Or is it a bad thing because he actually represents a belief set of globalism? It's hard to know. What he is doing, though, is representing those global interests translated through what the Trump administration plans to do. And I'll show you an example of this, or a couple examples of this. Let's go through a couple examples right now, in fact. Perfect. Okay. So we can see here, Soros Fund Management, he was a partner. All right. It's pretty major, isn't it? Economic advisor to Trump. First openly gay Secretary of the Treasury. And in fact, he appeared at his hearing today with his spouse, as he referred to him. And honestly, that was a strange presentation. And I will just briefly point out why. And, you know, people can make their own judgments on this stuff. I'm merely giving a media critique right now in terms of the presentation of this as a show, because indeed that's what it is. This is Scott Bessent right here. And this is his spouse right there, who is in a spotlight. I mean, it looks like the spotlight is directly on him. And of course, their kids, however that situation was arranged, are with them. Scott Bessent talked about how he started working at 9 years old and never stopped working. And he's also gay. So who was he working for at 9 years old? And he said he was working 2 jobs, in fact. You have to wonder, as a 9-year-old who goes into the workforce and is shepherded through that workforce for the rest of your life until you become a very wealthy globalist serving at the hip of George Soros, exactly what happened in those earlier years. And again, I don't know the man, but you can hear stories about this, including about Klaus Schwab, actually. Prussiagate is replete with stories exactly like that, where a down on his luck but bright kid gets paired up with a rich and powerful globalist who is able to teach them the ways of the world. And in fact, in some sense, that's what the movie Citizen Kane was also about. And maybe not a successful version of that from a globalist perspective as presented in that movie, but that's what it was about. Bessent, also a Yale guy involved in that Yale thing. Let me see if I can find the Yale thing as presented in the movie American Psycho. I've played this on the podcast before. It's hilarious. Here we are. An absolutely wonderful scene of an absolutely wonderful movie that at some point we're going to have to do on Badlands Story Hour.
What can you tell me about Paul Allen?
I'm at a loss. He was part of that whole Yale thing.
Yale thing?
Yeah, Yale thing.
What do you mean, Yale thing?
Well, I think for one that he was probably a closet homosexual who did a lot of cocaine at Yale thing.
Now, J.D. Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy are also Yaleys, as is Ron DeSantis, as is George H.W. Bush, of course, with the Skull and Bone Society there at Yale, John Kerry as well. Now, again, maybe people flipped over to the good team, okay? Maybe they're just doing all their work on the side of the good. So I don't want to cast aspersions on this guy, and it's not my place to judge his lifestyle, okay? This is a presentation of what the full situation here is, and these things should not be discounted because in other aspects of the world, these things are some of the most important things, including to the aspects of the world that control people exactly like this, okay? They care about these things. So for us to not care about these things because we think it seems rude or something, we can take these things into account, judge them or not judge them, keep an eye on a person or not, but we have to make those decisions. And people should do the same about my life too. I used to live in Hollywood. I used to vote for liberals. People should keep that in mind all the time when thinking about the things I said and say. Okay, so let's view two clips of Bessent. And listen, there are times in the hearing this morning where it seemed like Bessent and some of his interlocutors were doing a commercial for the IRS and for taxes. Okay, because all sides of the regime need the taxes to stay in place. They need the system in some regard to stay in place. Trump's going to get rid of all taxes, I think. I did an episode last June called Read My Lips, No Taxes. I've talked about how taxes have to be removed for a long time and how it seemed like the IRS has been, in my mind, wrapped for years. And maybe they're wrapping a few things up with legal issues and the like, following things up here and there, maybe going after actual fraud. I don't know. But they've got to be wrapped up. Donald Trump just suggested this week on Truth Social that the Internal Revenue Service be changed into an external revenue service. That's big news. And so Bessent then was asked a number of questions about tariffs, including by Bill Cassidy. Cassidy seems like he's representing the Republican establishment, as do the rest of them. Bessent seems like he's representing the same people he's always represented. He is an emissary of the Trump regime to those people. Let's say it that way. That is what it reads like. He knows who he's talking to. He knows what language they speak, and he's presenting what Trump actually thinks to them as the negotiation is being held in public. And Bill Cassidy is negotiating against Bessent on behalf of the Republican establishment and regime. And I wonder here if in this clip, if Todd Young and Bernie Sanders are doing the exact same things. So let's watch. There's two clips here, and we'll go at them individually, obviously. Let's see which one first. Let me see if I can nail it and bring up the. So this one was chronologically first, and this is the one that is more directly about tariffs. So let's go with this one from Senator Young of Indiana.
In terms of the application of tariffs, a skilled negotiator might sometimes use broad tariffs to gain leverage. And then in other cases, a more sector-specific approach could be effective. So what criteria or perhaps benchmarks would you use to inform your decision to go with across-the-board measures or more surgical tariffs? And do you believe there should be any built-in caps or triggers to prevent an unintended escalation?
Senator Young, I haven't been confirmed yet. President Trump.
Now, let's be clear. Young is asking for details on what the tariff program is going to be because he is expressing certain viewpoints and concerns. Are they his concerns? Give me a break. That doesn't even read as plausible to me. Now, Bessent multiple times today bugged the hell out of me and then tried to get himself back on track. But he was representing, and they're asking him questions about his own positions that are in direct conflict, actually, with the Trump administration positions. Now, if he was directed to give these answers, I would be awfully surprised. It seemed as though he was speaking for himself and people he has spoken for in the past. At one point, he... hold on, let me find the exact... yes. At one point, in one of his conversations about climate change, he suggested perhaps, and I think that this was the one with Bill Cassidy. I want to remember, and it was around that point in the hearing. It may not have been Cassidy, but he suggested carbon tariffs that that countries would like charge one another for how much carbon they produce. Really? We're going to go back to measuring carbon? When has Trump ever suggested anything about measuring carbon or carbon taxes or carbon tariffs? Why is Scott Bessent representing that as a potential plausible opinion? Was he directed to do that? I really don't think so. It seemed like he was presenting a negotiating position right there for people who still wanted to keep the climate change farce going. Senators were getting mad. Oh, he calls it a hoax. Oh, I don't believe it's a hoax. I believe climate change is real. Oh, Lee Zeldin said that today, by the way. He said climate change is real. And maybe he's talking about it the same way that Elon Musk is talking about it. Like over millennia, over many, many millennia, maybe the weather, the temperature of everything changes slightly. I don't know. So let's continue here. So Bessent holds himself back, and then he says, I think that this is what the Trump administration would say, which is what every answer from all these people should be when they are asked about policies. I am here to execute the president's policy. We are told the Treasury, it's too impossible to do that because it's their job to control economies on behalf of the global regime. That's what they've always done in the past. No more. It's being brought back under Treasury, the Fed, the IRS, and then it'll be the External Revenue Service. But Bessent has a great breakdown here of what tariffs will be used for, how the president thinks of tariffs. So let's hear that, and then we'll pause again.
Isn't in office, but I would imagine that you, the American people, should think about tariffs in three ways under the Trump administration. One will be for remedying unfair trade practices, either by industry or country, the Chinese tariffs, the steel. Two, maybe for a more generalized tariff as a revenue raiser for the federal budget. And three, President Trump, I think, has added a third use of tariffs, as you said, as a skilled negotiator he believes that we've probably gotten over our skis a bit on sanctions, and that sanctions may be driving countries out of the use of the U.S. dollar. So the tariffs can be used for negotiations, whether it's for Mexico on the fentanyl crisis. I think you and the American people should think about those three broad categories.
Thank you, sir.
So, one, we have to even out price manipulation. The first two are economic and practical, and the third is about leverage. Okay, if you want to do business here, you are going to have to pay to do business here. That is the Trump policy. He says Trump believes we've gotten out in front of our skis on sanctions. That means they have manipulated the world's economies to a point where now the world is rejecting their currency. Okay? That's all the leverage. That's all the leverage. Scott Bessent is saying, you don't really have that leverage anymore. So we're going to use this for the leverage instead. And this will be one country against another country. And it's not going to be a fully globally planned system that you just get to watch operate as you manipulate it and force countries, governments, and people to do as you command. That's what that is right there. That's amazing as far as I'm concerned. We've gotten out in front of our skis as far as sanctions are concerned. Who's we? Does Donald Trump mean the United States? Is Donald Trump part of that we? Donald Trump and the sorry. That was probably a terrible sound. I hit my mic. Did Donald Trump and the global bankers, the Uniparty, get out in front of the skis when it comes to sanctions? Or was that the global regime that's done that all the way around the world using control of the US dollar to accomplish what their foreign policy and negotiations cannot? Yes, that's them. That's not a Trump thing. So he certainly can't believe that he has gotten out in front of the skis. He can't believe that his administration has either. So who is Bessent's we? Who is the we that Bessent usually has spoken for in the past? And heard that way, it's an entirely different statement. He's saying Donald Trump believes that we've gotten out in front of our skis on sanctions. And so it's just going to be this now. And so I'm sorry to tell you, those practical matters as regards sanctions do indeed matter, but it's this third one. You can't have a fully planned economy if different countries are negotiating different trade deals all the time. Okay? Free markets and free trade, more specifically, free markets are free markets. Free trade to globalists means globalist free trade. It means they plan the entire economy in whatever way they need to, and whoever won't go along with it will be leveraged into compliance. Again, first through the media, corruption and compromise. Then economics, those are the sanctions. That is step 2 in that chain of manipulation and overthrow. That's no longer an option. That's what's being said here. Okay? So that is big. And I don't know if Bessent is saying that to let them know and he's fully on board with the program, or if he's just communicating the message. And he's talking about we as in we, the people who plan societies. And I got to tell you, once again, all about forgiveness and second chances, people becoming redeemable communists. I've been that person, okay? People have been forgiving to me. They offer me a second chance. They take my word for what it is because it's consistent with my actions to the extent that they do or don't. And I hope to remain in good graces through my acts, okay? All of us who were on the other side can hope for that same possibility, and we should hope to extend that possibility to people who then want to tell us, oh, hey, here's what I learned. I want to help go the other direction. But Bessent, right here, it's important to still know these things. This is the document that we always go through from the International Crisis Group, imagining a resolution of Venezuela's crisis. In this document, they plot out the overthrow of the Maduro regime in Venezuela. It's not something other than that. It is only that. And it is a business presentation made to wealthy and powerful globalists like Scott Bessent, who will ultimately make the investment decisions about whether plans like this will, in fact, be implemented. And here we are, the Board of Trustees. And where is he? Where are we here? Here it is. Okay. Right there, Scott Bessent on the President's Council of the International Crisis Group, right? It is necessary to know that. Snowcat Operator gifted a subscription earlier. Thank you very much. AJC3 gifted 5. Thank you, Jay. That's awesome. You guys are great at this. Thank you. What a cool thing to do, honestly. Team Smooth, $10. Thumbs up. Thank you. All right. So that's clip 1. Let's go to clip 2. This is with Bernie Sanders. Now, I've talked before about how the first time I got kind of semi-canceled in Hollywood was in 2015 and 2016 when I would not support Bernie Sanders. The same people who supported Obama, who I had supported, were supporting Bernie Sanders, doing celebrity wrangling for Bernie Sanders, and they were trying to recruit me into that. Both of the people who did that, and the two primary ones, work in Hollywood nightlife, much as I had worked in Hollywood nightlife. They knew a lot of people, and they are still very much dyed-in-the-wool communists and still pushing for Kamala and for Trump hate and for Trump in jail and for all the rest of it. Okay. They were Bernie Sanders people, and I was anti-Bernie because Bernie's been a communist forever. And I was like, okay, well, no matter what, communism is the worst thing. And I didn't think that at the time, obviously, Hillary was a global communist, or I didn't think she was a communist. She was certainly a globalist. That was undeniable. But at the time, I was like, well, this is just how politics work. And that bad man is the other option. And obviously I reversed those opinions, but even not supporting Bernie was enough to get me almost canceled in 2015 and 2016. So I've been watching Bernie Sanders say the same exact things for the entire time. He has never actually said what democratic socialism is. People believe he said it in a policy speech in Georgetown during that campaign. It's a 45-minute long speech where he says millionaires and billionaires over and over again. Talks about how good things are in the Scandinavian countries, which are primarily one society, all white, okay? And very accustomed to living with socialism. It's also not socialism that enriches them. It is the extent to which they follow the global regime and are then funded on that basis, okay? So that is not a system that we want to emulate. It is just an advancement of the global regime system in a country that doesn't demand what Americans demand. And of course, they're also not the labor camp or the army camp of the global regime either. Here is Bernie Sanders. I should say, the last thing is that watching Bernie Sanders get absolutely obliterated is one of my favorite things ever. This man is so stupid and just says the same things over and over again in order to create viral content. He goes for it twice here and strikes out twice because Bessent blows it up both times. He begins here by talking about the millionaires and billionaires. Biden last night said it was an oligarchy, turning into an oligarchy. And Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, is it good that 3 people are so rich? Okay. Hit the same spiel he always gives. Here's Bessent.
The 3 billionaires who you listed that all made the money themselves. Mr. Musk came to the country as an immigrant.
I understand that, but what I'm asking you is when you have a handful of people like Musk, who will soon be part of the Trump administration, and others, when you have 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society, when these people have enormous influence over the media, when they spend huge amounts of money in both political parties to elect candidates, what Biden said last night is we're moving toward an oligarchy. I'm asking you that question. Do you think, forget how they made their money, do you think that when so few people have so much wealth and so much economic and political power that is an oligarchic form of society?
Well, I would note that President Biden gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to 2 people who I think would qualify for his oligarchs. So
this is not a condemnation of any one individual. I'm just asking you, would so few people have so much wealth and power?
But
do you think that is an oligarchic form of society?
Senator, I think it depends on the ability to move up and down the income.
No, that's not really the answer. I mean, even if you had that mobility, no matter who those individuals might be, All right, but let me ask you another question.
Are you prepared to say today under oath without reservation that Donald Trump lost the presidential contest to Joe Biden in 2020?
Ranking Member Durbin, President Biden is the President of the United States. He was duly sworn in, and he is the President of the United States. There was a peaceful transition of power. President Trump left office and was overwhelmingly elected in 2024.
Do you have any doubts that Joe Biden had the majority of votes, electoral votes necessary to be elected president in 2020?
You know, Senator, all I can tell you as a prosecutor is from my firsthand experience. And I accept the results. I accept, of course, that Joe Biden is president of the United States. But what I can tell you is what I saw firsthand when I went to Pennsylvania as an advocate for the campaign. I was an advocate for the campaign, and I was on the ground in Pennsylvania, and I saw many things there. But do I accept the results? Of course I do. Do I?
I'm going to pause for just a second. Guys, I just saw in the chat that I was muted there on the comeback from that Bernie Sanders clip. So I was just remarking about how Bernie Sanders' favorite lines blew up directly in his face. And it's a joy to see that. He made the economic points, of course, about how those people accumulated their own wealth. Now, again, this is from the Bessent perspective. I don't know that it is actually true that those people accumulated their own wealth. The association with the global regime and the work that they did on behalf of the global regime, and the fact that their companies are like inseparably linked to the American government, to DARPA, etc. I don't know that claiming that they've made their own money is accurate or honest. And I would think that he's probably hip to at least some of that, but maybe not, because of the people he's worked with throughout that entire time. Gosh, man, I really can't stand when I do that. So apologies, guys. I guess that might have been a minute or two, and I feel terrible about that. Gosh. Oh man, everybody was like, "You're muted." Okay. Darn it. Thanks, Polymath. I just saw that. Okay. Well, so now what you're seeing is Pam Bondi in front of the Senate panel yesterday. I said that we talked a little bit about the hearings in the Bondi hearing on the subscriber stream, but I left out this clip about the elections. And I think this is important because we are about to hear all sorts of election related stuff again. And as I mentioned yesterday, you know, they talked about QAnon, the return of QAnon in these conversations, because everybody's worried that Kash Patel is going to show up and give some testimony, and then QAnon will be a big thing again. I can imagine that they're probably trying to tie the election fraud narratives directly to the QAnon narratives so that they can make all of that look like a conspiracy theory. Elections being stolen in America, of course, is not a conspiracy theory. We do not have real elections. There is no such thing as an election in America that is not stolen. Okay. So that's going to have to be resolved at some point. And clearly Bondi is not really giving an inch. I wouldn't even have said that Joe Biden is president of the United States, but to the extent that there is an entity that exists that is called the United States, that manages the bureaucratic state, that is nonetheless not the United States of America, the constitutional republic, or whatever may have come before that, the Union of States that may have come before that, that he is not president of that. If there's some direct legal qualification there that makes that technically true, then fine. Otherwise, he should not be recognized by anyone in any situation as president of the United States. Hopefully after Monday, that will have changed permanently. Let's listen to the rest of her answer here.
I agree with what happened. And I saw so much, you know, no one from either side of the aisle should want there to be any issues with election integrity in our country. We should all want our elections to be free and fair, and the rules and the laws to be followed.
I think that question deserved a yes or no. And I think the length of your answer is an indication that you weren't prepared to answer yes.
Well, take it however you want. The answer is no. Joe Biden did not win the 2020 election. There is good reason to believe that Joe Biden did not have the Electoral College votes to win the election. There was not an election held because it was a fake election, and it was very likely just a sting, and that's still being processed, and we will eventually get to some form of resolution on that. But in the meantime, it's important for people to understand that the election was not won by Joe Biden, and that, as Pam Bondi said, it is absolutely necessary that the country believe in our elections. If 50% of the country doesn't believe in our elections, the legitimacy of our elections, then we don't have a country, period. You can't have a quote unquote democracy where no one believes in the elections. And if the majority of the people don't believe in the elections, it doesn't matter what the experts say. It doesn't matter what the politicians say. It doesn't matter what the courts say. The people render final judgment. They're the final authority. That's it. And the people don't believe that the elections are legitimate because they're not legitimate. They're not even real. They're a joke. And none of these people asking these questions are legitimate either. So this stuff needs to be absolutely addressed. And it sounds like Pam Bondi is potentially ready to address it. Now, one of the other interesting factors, of course, they're all asking her about Kash Patel. And the understanding is that Kash Patel is the scariest person in the world to the deep state. And he may well be. Now, they delayed Kash Patel. He was supposed to go today. And maybe he'll be scheduled for tomorrow. If that's the case, maybe they'll delay him again. It would be really funny if they just kept delaying him. Oh, whoops, we weren't able to have Kash do it. Oh, whoops, we weren't able to have Kash do it. Because in many of these cases, it looks like these are just mass hearings to blow up the deep state characters and the rhinos in the Republican Party. And the fact that many of these people are globalists, and that the senators are communicating on behalf of globalism and on behalf of mainstream media to cement official stories about certain issues within the central narrative that are totally untrue. They're basically just repeating the news that they've heard on Fox News or on MSNBC and asking these characters to agree that the stories are true and then emote about them, tell their opinions about them, or declare that they personally will support policy positions relative to those issues, regardless of whether or not the Donald Trump administration supports those policy positions. They're being asked to take their own policy positions in public and commit the Trump administration to those positions. And that shouldn't be happening at all. And they are doing it. And to the extent that they are doing it, that should be looked at negatively. Their job is to go in there and say, this is my understanding of the issue. This is the Trump administration's position on the issue. This is how it will work. They're there to execute Donald Trump's agenda, not to like serve as a go-between, although right now Trump might have them there to serve as a go-between, but ultimately it's not their role to initiate this policy. They're implementing a Trump agenda. If they have policy ideas, of course, you take them to the president, you argue your case. And if the president says, yes, let's do that, then that's what you do. But that's still implemented by him. It's not Bessent thinking for himself, negotiating on the president's behalf in public out loud, unless he's tasked to do that. And hopefully that's exactly what it is. But it is awfully strange that all of this is such a television show and such an obvious television show. No business like show business, and now they're doing show business because they want the American public to believe that the story that TV tells is true and that the global regime's agenda is a good one and that the Trump administration should support it. We're seeing a commercial for the Uniparty, both sides of the Uniparty, both sides of the Uniparty media, and the globalist economic agenda. I was informed by my friend Ash in America earlier. She was watching the Doug Burgum hearing, said that they were talking about the use of public-private partnerships. Well, Doug Burgum is supposedly friends with Bill Gates, is he not? Public-private partnerships, well, Bill Gates uses a lot of those. Public-private partnerships are fascism. The government and private corporations are not supposed to combine and collude to the point where they are indistinguishable. Yet we have public-private partnerships running our elections. We have public-private partnerships with NGOs running immigration, actually executing immigration policy. Why is the government making contracts and committing resources to these organizations to run the slave trade at the southern border rather than shutting down the slave trade at the southern border? It's because it's the globalist agenda. That's who's responsible for the slave trade. Okay. So of course, globalist NGOs and transnational globalist corporations are going to perform the practical elements of the global regime's agenda, right? What does it look like from the top level if a cruise ship, like a Carnival cruise or something, and I don't know that they're doing this, okay? Don't sue me for defamation. I'm just trying to get your mind to do this. So let's say definitely not Carnival Cruise, never them, absolutely not them. But some other cruise ship was simultaneously, think of the surprise party, think of the reality show filming at a nightclub. What if one of these cruise liners is simultaneously everybody's vacation, a great way to see a bunch of islands, a way to transport workers across the world, and a way to transport goods and human trafficking all at the same time? What if they were doing all those things in one gigantic boat the size of a small city? Is that possible? Yes, it's possible. Does it happen? I haven't really taken a deep dive on the cruise industry, so I don't know. A lot of things can be happening at once. And if the government is partnering with corporations to do one thing that we believe the government should be involved doing, and the government shouldn't be involved in doing any of these things, but if it's doing one of those things and then we have partnered with that organization, then why would we assume that we have partnered with that organization only to do those things and not any of the other things that might be happening? All right. And so then where are the profit centers coming from? How are these people getting so wealthy on certain things? These are questions that have to be asked. And so public-private partnerships actually matter a great deal. Why is our government in a position to be doing any of these things? Why is our federal government in a position to be doing any of these things and subsidizing them and funding them and passing laws to benefit them and regulating other industries so they can't compete with them. What is Doug Burgum representing when he is discussing public-private partnerships? Now, to be fair, I haven't watched those comments, so I ask that genuinely not knowing. And even if I was watching those comments, I would present both sides. Seems like he's doing this here. Seems like he's doing this here, as I did with Bessent. Okay, the person's not the point is not coming down on a final judgment about what these people represent and what they're saying. The point is that our job is not to cheerlead these people. It's to watch what they're saying and think about what they're saying, because I believe that we would all like to understand these things in the future. I think that it's probably very important to do that. Now, it was, what time is it? 3:53 Central. It is, I think we have a little time left. Okay. So today, Ron DeSantis named the replacement for Marco Rubio in the Florida Senate. Now, Rubio was nominated to the fantasy team by Donald Trump a couple of months ago, and he is resigning his Senate seat, much like J.D. Vance just did in Ohio. And now Ron DeSantis has selected as the replacement for Marco Rubio, Ashley Moody. Now, Florida does not have legitimate elections. Ron DeSantis, unless it is all a grand kayfabe operation, seems to be the person who was at one time the number one potential Donald Trump light GOP establishment replacement candidate. Right? He made himself that through the fake primaries that Donald Trump participated in, to the extent that they could be believably considered real, but to no extent further than that. He talked about them when he had to talk about them. He made fun of the other political opponents, and then he just went around giving rallies, not participating in debates, not worried about any of it because none of it actually mattered. Ron DeSantis and the information operation that had been set up around him 16, 17 months before he announced his candidacy, all of that was exposed, as was the Florida GOP. And Steve Bannon on his show this morning seems to be taunting them a little bit, if you ask me. And maybe we'll take just a little bit of a look at Bannon's rant in just a second, which I find really important because Steve Bannon, I think, again, knows what is going on. And if you listen to him, he's going to drop nuggets in there, just the way he talks about things, because he is actually communicating the MAGA position from a high level. Let's check out Ashley Moody, and maybe we'll stop this a few times. I actually was at the gym this morning when I saved this, so I haven't watched this clip yet. It's about 5.5 minutes long, 6 minutes long. So let's get started here.
What I was going to say to you. But that is because he is deliberate and takes nothing lightly and understands the importance of this role. Governor, I want you to know I will not let you down. I will not let the citizens of Florida down, and I will not let my country down.
She paused, knowing that is an applause line, of course. She stopped just short of please clap now, which Ron said during his camp. Oh, no, sorry. That was Jeb, ! Not Ron, who said that. That was a moment very much like that. Also worth noting, DeSantis immediately then promoted his chief of staff, James Uthmeier, to Ashley Moody's position. So his chief of staff throughout the fake campaign, the failure of a fake campaign run by Meatball Ron, that's now the new Attorney General of Florida. Ron DeSantis just determined that. And the Florida GOP marches on. Let's continue.
It was just 6 years ago that I met this very eager, passionate guy who wanted to be the governor of Florida and said, if we go in there and we implement conservative policy, if we scale back, make sure we return this to a limited government, we will prosper. And look at what Florida has done since.
What have they done? Do they have real elections? No. Did they avoid lockdowns or any of the consequences? No. Florida participated in COVID. Florida has fake elections. Ron is supported by all the people still warmongering for Israel and Ukraine and all of it. I don't see any way how it is amazing to me that people think this guy's just not automatically establishment GOP. If they hadn't run a multi-year long operation for Ron DeSantis on Fox News, I can't imagine anybody liking this guy. And they're just like, well, Trump put him in his position. Yeah, Trump's put a lot of people in a lot of positions.
We lead the nation in net and migration, new business formation, and law and order. I can go on, and it has been at the leadership and direction with this guy right here. And I am proud not to just say I have fought alongside you for 6 years, but I'm proud to call you a friend. And I am very honored with this nomination. Thank you so much. I will bring the same persistence and passion and tenacity as a United States Senator that I have brought as Florida's Attorney General. If you have worked with me and fought with me over the last 6 years, you know I don't think of this as a job. I think of it as a calling. Every day I go to work, every decision that I make, every person I hire, I do so with the understanding that the people of Florida gave me this opportunity, and I want to deliver on what I assured them. And that was we were going to protect their rights. We were going to protect the autonomy of this state. We were going to protect our communities. And I believe that we have done that, and I think we have to take that same direction to the United States Senate. This guy used to be in Congress, and he says to me and has said to me, I don't know why anybody would want that job. I said to him, I kind of agree with you, Governor. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm pretty energetic. I like to get things done, focus on problems, solve the problems, deliver those to the people that hired you, your bosses, the citizens. And there's a lot of deadlock in Washington. And then I thought more.
Did the citizens hire her as a senator? I mean, the original Constitution didn't have the direct election of senators, so I don't have a problem with it on that side. And if we're shifting back toward that, and I think that that's the macro pattern, then the appointment is what it is. And I'm not going to complain about the fact that she wasn't, quote unquote, democratically elected, but let's be clear about what's happening here.
About that. And I thought if every person with the same energy, the same love, the respect for our founding principles, the ideals on which this country was built on, if every person like that with that personality said, I don't think I'd like serving in Congress, then we'd never change that culture. And so you're probably right. I probably won't like it. But I'm ready to show up and fight for this nation and fight for President Trump to deliver the American First agenda on day one.
Well, that right there is good. That's good. Just unequivocally good. Say that, keep saying that, and then actually do that. But of course, you got to actually do that.
What has angered me the most as Attorney General, as I've had to fight the Biden administration over the last 4 years, when we have seen policy after policy after.
Did you fight the Biden administration on their illegitimacy? I didn't see anybody do that. Now, maybe she actually, let's find this out. Did she sign on to Ken Paxton's suit in 2020? Did Ashley Moody sign on to Ken Paxton's election lawsuit in 2020? She did sign on to the Paxton lawsuit. The day after Paxton filed it, she joined 16 other state attorneys general in supporting the lawsuit. So that is very good. That is very good, Ashley Moody.
After rule, after financial decisions, spending out of these agencies, as the agencies have gotten bigger, as they have taken more power, as they have tried to tell the states what to do more and more and more, all that does is take the will of the people, the want of the people through their elected representatives in Congress, and turns this into a country we don't even recognize anymore. And whether it's agencies making these decisions when lawmakers should, unelected bureaucrats, or whether it's international organizations making decisions that our lawmakers should, we cannot stand for that. The only way to return this country to the people who govern it, is to make sure we have a strong Congress doing its job, passing laws, and actually approving the regulations that these unelected bureaucrats are trying to cram down on the American people. And I pledge to you, as a United States Senator, supporting the REINS Act, supporting any effort to rein back in our out-of-control federal agencies, make sure politics is pushed out of it, make sure we bring down spending. I am all for that, and I've got the backs of the American people, DOJ, and President Trump on that.
Okay, so the American people and President Trump, you've got their backs. That's excellent. The DOJ thing, I could not possibly care less about. But all of that was good. All of that was good. That's how it's supposed to be. The legislators from the states are supposed to be creating the regulations to the extent that there are any regulations. Now, they shouldn't be creating regulations on any of the stuff that actually gets regulated by the federal government. So that is going to be a massive taking apart of the regulatory regime. Okay. They just don't have any business, constitutionally speaking, regulating any of the stuff they're regulating. So, or most of the stuff that they're regulating. So that stuff should be gone. Yeah, very good statement all through that section.
I am driven by many things in life. I will bring the influence of many things in my life, my experiences certainly, but I am driven by my faith in God, first and foremost. I am driven by the fact that I am a mother and I still have a kid in school. And whether it was protecting children from social media, from the dangers of fentanyl, the poison that's being pushed into our nation as the result of a wide open border, whether it's protecting our soldiers, the oldest boy in our family is a soldier. So whether it is supporting them while they are abroad or after they come home, I have their backs. And last but not least, God has blessed me with an amazing husband who's with me, Justin. When I told him I wanted to leave the bench, now mind you, I may be the first senator governor. I don't know if this went into your plan. He was most excited I'm a trained accountant, so I can shrink the bloat of the federal government. But I also served over a decade in the judiciary. I have now served in the...
Okay, so that's as long as that clip is. She was saying the right things, so that sounds good. I have never deep dived on Ashley Moody, here and there. So DeeSantis is replacing Rubio with Ashley Moody. So interesting. Replacing Ashley Moody with James Uthmeyer, his chief of staff. Interesting. I don't know what to make of any of that. I mean, the guy is thoroughly untrustworthy. Ron DeSantis is. So is his hand being forced on that decision? Maybe, probably. Can't imagine Ron DeSantis is coming up with these things on his own, but maybe he is. Maybe he's still representing the people he always represented. Maybe he is working on behalf of Donald Trump and the American people. That story is yet to be told. I don't know what the ultimate outcome of that will be. Let me just see if I can get this Bannon part up again, because there was something really interesting he was saying about Ron DeSantis today and Florida and Florida's GOP generally. It sounds, he sounds like he's making it clear that Florida's GOP overplayed its hand with MAGA.
And magnificent performance so far. Don't you agree? Audience, you have done an amazing ago.
Let's get forward.
And that was an America First. Not just simply America First, but America First with also a heavy emphasis on taking down the Chinese Communist Party. Just fantastic. We want to start there. And Stephanie Rowe, for the first time, kind of disappointed me. Concerned about the FBI. But produced before going into prison. Very proud of the film. Tremendous feedback on it. But go check it out. Share it with people. It's only back in California and Texas. So this is a massive operation with hundreds.
Okay, so he's talking about Pam Bondi and how she was the Florida Attorney General before. He's not specifically talking about Moody right now, but Pam Bondi. So I think that the clip I want starts right here.
General of Florida, which I believe is the third biggest Attorney General office, only back in California and Texas. So this is a massive operation with hundreds of lawyers doing everything from criminal prosecutions to commercial in real estate, getting involved in commercial and real estate enforcement of the law and also disputes. So she has broad experience. No Democrat. It's one of the reasons we focus on Democrats here when we do these confirmation hearings. We want you to see what the opposition's doing, and we're really proud of the fact of how we've juggled this the last couple of days with the Real America's Voice team. It's not that easy to kind of cut in and out and try to get the best bits. Today, we're going to have Pam, and I think Pam's starting here momentarily. Pam's day 2. Think how tough it is for her to be Attorney General, which I would argue is the most important, is the first among equals of cabinet positions because it's involved in everything. The job of the Attorney General, I don't know how they get to breathe. They are involved in everything. They're going to be involved massively in immigration, massively in the not just changing the laws, but the deportations, the securing of the border. They're involved, obviously, in everything in national security, law enforcement, all of it. So Pam, it's a 20-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job. But she's got a ton of energy and just represented her way there. What I also like, it's unaffected. She doesn't come with that kind of Washington, the veneer these people get here after they've been here decade after decade. I mean, she's coming. It's that's Florida right there, right? That's University of Florida. Yesterday, you could have had, if we had not gone fixed bayonets with Pete Hegseth, you could have had Ron DeSantis. You would have had 3 Floridians. And I don't think DeSantis went to University of Florida. I think he's a transplant afterwards. But you had 3 Floridians. You would have had state defense and attorney general all from Florida. That's pretty impressive, Florida. Pretty impressive. But Pam and the University of Florida, between Marco Rubio and Pam Bondi, represented well. Pam was under intense pressure. She starts back.
So he was talking about a month ago, maybe there were the rumors about Ron DeSantis being nominated for Secretary of Defense, replacing Pete Hegseth. And he said they went and got the back of Pete Hegseth, which is what prevented that. And it sounds to me like he was suggesting that the Florida GOP overplayed its hand, and the whole Ron DeSantis thing as SecDef never made sense as a story. I mean, you can have your own discussion about whether or not he would be a sensible choice for that. I don't see how, but the story was very obviously bullshit, very much like this Vivek Ramaswamy story we covered just a bit ago. Let's listen to this for about another minute.
Back up today at 10:15. Then I think Lee Zeldin's going to go here in a few minutes. EPA, we do want to go. I'd love to get his opening statement. As you know, EPA is absolutely central to the deconstruction of the administrative state. Lee, who's really been a specialist in foreign affairs, he's done a lot on the EPA side. I think it's a great pick. Number one, I think it's a great pick because Lee is tough as boot leather, and you're going to need to be over there. He will be under siege from the inside. Always remember, we had Rob Bluey on the other day from the Daily Signal, and they had done this poll that showed that 50% of the apparatus, 50% of the bureaucrats, 50% of the senior executives said not only were they not going to go along, not only were they not just going to slow walk things, they were going to be have active resistance to President Trump's policies. One of the ones that will be central to that is EPA. EPA is like OMB. These ones are maybe not the glamour position.
All right, I don't want to belabor it. We'll leave the Bannon bit there. Let's go to Politico. This is from yesterday. Sorry, I'm not 100% sure that the clip I wanted is coming up right there, and I don't want to just listen through the other one. I generally knew where it was. Okay. This is why why it's with a live show. It's not as good when I compile my work at the gym. I'm finding that now out right now, live on air. Johnson removes Mike Turner as House Intel chair. The Ohio Republican has been an outspoken advocate for Ukraine funding and other hawkish national security stances. So again, we are seeing the entire Republican establishment put on display for what it really is so that it can then be rejected. We are, I said 2022 was rhino hunting. 2023 ended up being the same thing throughout that fake primary. Then last year, the entire thing was about how we have to unify with these people in order to win a fake election. And that message was coming from their side, of course, as always, but also from many of the same truthers telling us we need to cheerlead for the nominees to the fantasy team. We need to clap along because the television is showing us all the base and red-pilled TV characters talking to other TV characters in an official setting. Speaker Mike Johnson removed Mike Turner as chair of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence on Wednesday, saying he wanted to give the panel a fresh start in a new Congress and with a new president. That's like removing Adam Schiff, except with an R next to his name. But conservative hardliners in the House and other Republicans loyal to President-elect Donald Trump had been pressing Johnson for months to remove the Ohio Republican. And Johnson cited Trump as a reason for the ouster when the speaker met with Turner Wednesday night, according to a person familiar with the conversation, who was granted anonymity to describe it. Turner told CBS News' Margaret Brennan that Johnson had cited concerns from Mar-a-Lago as the reason for the decision. He goes right on with CBS's Margaret Brennan. This is like Ken Buck when he left Colorado. It's amazing when the establishment guys are finally defeated, they immediately run to the mainstream media to say why it was bad. They become Democrats' best friends. First, not even Democrats, but the Uniparty left. First named to lead committee Republicans in 2022 by then leader Kevin McCarthy, Turner has made enemies on the MAGA right over his handling of key intelligence matters, including a major internal battle over renewing certain surveillance authorities last year. He's also been an outspoken advocate for Ukraine funding and other hawkish national security stances. Commenting to reporters, Johnson deflected blame away from the returning president, saying, "This is not a President Trump decision. This is a House decision." He also said the decision was no slight to Turner, who had performed valiantly in a difficult time under difficult circumstances. And I guess one day we will know the truth. Apologies. I think I might have to sneeze here. Maybe I have survived it. Maybe. We'll see. Still, the decision blindsided many members who remain loyal to Turner, including some current intelligence panel members. Unlike most House panels, the selection of the Intel chairman is solely at the Speaker's discretion. And so this is also the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Okay? Connecticut Representative Jim Himes, the top Democrat on the intelligence panel, spoke to reporters shortly after the news broke. He had maintained a cordial relationship with Turner, who had pledged to undertake a bipartisan reset on the panel when ascending to the top Republican spot in 2022. His predecessor, Devin Nunes, was a fierce Trump loyalist who had continually clashed with then-chair Adam Schiff. "I have ice in my spine right now because that'll totally change the dynamic of oversight," Himes said of Turner's removal. He added, "I'm sure that Mike lost some friends over his role in preserving U.S. surveillance powers last year and the foreign wars." Johnson said he intends to name a new chair Thursday. He named 2 Trump loyalists to the committee last year, Scott Perry and Ronnie Jackson, and could elevate one to lead it. The panel also has several Republican vacancies Johnson can fill. So the House Permanent Select Committee is being reshaped by Mike Johnson. And we discussed on this podcast last year the regime reaction to the initial replacements Let me see if I can find it. House Select Committee on Substack. It would be great if I was just immediately able to nail this one down. Okay, so I'm not sure, but at some point last fall, we talked about how Johnson was adding Perry and Ronnie Jackson to the Select Committee on Intelligence. And that was met with great reeing across the land. People were very, very upset that Mike Johnson would be doing this. Well, what could matter more than replacing the people on these intelligence committees who have access to this supposedly real and true information, like Adam Schiff, who then go out and leak and abuse it and are not there to serve the people's agenda at all, are merely there to serve the interests of the global regime in the Congress of the United States of America, the supposedly People's House. And then just as we close out today and this week, and ultimately, I mean, the next time we talk, there's not going to be any more Joe Biden, unless something really dramatic happens between now and Monday afternoon, because I will be off tomorrow, as I said at the beginning of the week. So the next episode of this show will be in the post next fake inauguration period. This will be the last in these days of dystopia. We shall see. So Biden's farewell address last night, as I mentioned, from the supposed Oval Office, although it may just as well be the fake Oval Office built down the street in the fake White House down the street, which is in every way set up to resemble Joe Biden's Oval Office, right down to the Bible there. You see this rosary on his wrist, of course. Is that a rosary? The oligarchy, Biden, Biden, Biden. I think there was some indication that let me just ask the machine and see if the machine knows, that his farewell address was pre-recorded. And I didn't dig deeply into that, but one of you may have. Was the Biden farewell address? It's a topic of speculation. While there were claims circulating on social media suggesting that the address was not live, the official narrative indicates that it was indeed delivered in real time from the Oval Office with family members present during the speech. What is the case to be made that it was pre-recorded? So the machine knows that it might have been pre-recorded. Following the speech, Trump's incoming communications director and press secretary began spreading claims on social media that Biden's address had been pre-recorded. I wonder if they are talking about, let's see if I can find this. Strange. The narrative was positioned as a way to undermine the legitimacy of Biden's warnings about misinformation and oligarchy, suggesting that if he were indeed delivering a live address, it would be less likely for such claims to circulate. It doesn't actually make any sense. And I believe that it was because people saw a restarting of that address on the broadcast of it. Let me see if I can find out here quickly. And if not, then we will move on. And I don't think it's going to be possible. Maybe we'll hit that up next week at some point. But it would just be one amazing final element of the Joe Biden fakery. And why don't we do this actually quickly? Joe Biden farewell address. And let's see if I can find it directly from the White House account, because that would be like, the official one. Why do they make it so hard to just find the official White House account? There we are. So is this really possible? Oh, here we go. Okay, so here's the farewell address. It was 17 minutes and 20 seconds long.
Non-stop negotiation by administration, by my administration. A ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached by Israel and Hamas, the elements of which I laid out in great detail in May of this year. This plan was developed and negotiated by my team and will be largely implemented by the incoming administration.
All right, so we don't need to go through that. I don't want to spread conspiracy theories here or anything, but this is the official White House account, supposedly. Pretending that this is the official president right here. 558 views. It was only put up today. It was put up an hour ago, I think a couple hours ago, I think it said. What did it say? Rather amazing. So this is not from a live broadcast last night. They uploaded this video today, and I'm not sure if the video that shows what people purported to have seen is available. Maybe. Okay. That's what it was. That's what it was. Maybe we will end with a little bit of QAnon lore ourselves now that they are talking about it in Congress once again. I'm being told that the @Q account, and I wrote, people might be familiar with this, but there is a series on the Substack called A Story About Reality about the appearance of this Q account, this @LittleQ account on Truth Social before Truth Social launched, and some of the lore behind that. It's quite an interesting story. But here is the Q account from Truth Social, and this says the live stream, quote unquote, just exposed Joe Biden's pre-recorded farewell address as his handlers were caught preparing to play it. Also, what's the folder? Photoshop docs. Okay. And so here's the video. Secretary Lloyd Austin, they're like queuing up the video, I guess, for what's going to go out on the live feed. A mistake was made potentially. Joe Biden President Joe Biden Oval Office address. 17 seconds long. Okay. I guess everyone can believe what they will about that. Seems like that fake president just broadcast another fake live stream. There's no reason to believe that was in a real White House. There never has been. I don't know what else to say about the fake administration, but we will leave it there, I guess, for the illegitimate Biden regime. There we have it. I guess on Monday, and barring some unforeseen circumstance, this is the 1,400, what did I say, 58th, 57th day of dystopia. Tomorrow would be 1,458, 1,459, 1,460 on Sunday, and then we will begin again. I guess the next day would be the last day technically, because we'll start on the first full day. But man, oh man, you made it through. How about that? We'll talk more about that next week. Checking the chat very quickly here. Okay, that's it. All right, guys. So I will be back on Monday, unless barring unforeseen circumstances, I will be back on Monday at the same reasonable time on the same reasonable podcast network. I don't have a network. Masks and lockdowns don't work. They lied to you about a pandemic, and Joe Biden will never, ever be and never was president.
Well, what?
You know who I am, don't you?
Well, you ain't Fiona Apple, and if you ain't Fiona Apple, I don't give a rat's ass.
And what's wrong with being an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times? What do you think, Max?
Do you want to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times?
Yeah, I think I'd like to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times.
It's not true. It's more true than I would perhaps prefer.
Not let you down.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
What?
In my mind, that's the end game.
If you're listening for free and would like to support the show, the best way to do that is by signing up for a paid subscription at imyourmoderator.substack.com. You can find the info stream over on Telegram at t.me/veryreasonable. The merch site is cancelcouture.com, and for all my other links, you can visit linktree.com/imyourmoderator. And I'll see you soon. Down on the range.